covering so many aspects of all of these issues. And I want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East. You know, we talked about Israel earlier. And there's been a real hot spot, of course, of, what's been going on in Syria. A lot of attention there over the past few years because we've had, obviously, a lot of concern about the Russians, ISIS, what's happening with various terror groups there, our participation. Are things getting better? Well, we've got a very special guest who is joining us now, and he's been with us before. He's CEO of the Near East Center for Strategic Engagement, and he is a gentleman who has served his country, and we appreciate his contributions. Sargis Sangari is with us. Sargis, how are you doing, sir? Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So before we get into talking about what's happening in the Middle East, give us a little bit of information about your Near East Center for Strategic Engagement.
Well, this is our fourth year now that we're entering. We've been very well received. We've done multiple support briefings on foreign policy matters for both administrations at the National Security Council, the Department of State, Near East Affairs, the Office of Strategic Defense out of the Pentagon, and various different elements include CENTCOM and everybody else that are within the U.S. security apparatus. So we've been trying our best to get the decision makers to have the best information possible from on the ground, what is happening. Of course, our main focus has been all the time to support the Christian causes in Iraq and Syria, given the fact that they have gone through a genocide and still continue with ISIL being removed off the battlefield, having to fight against that type of ideology. So we're in a good position, and hopefully something better will happen for the Christians in the coming future.
So ISIS, from what I understand, has suffered tremendous losses over the past year. Is that true, Sargis?
They have, but they've also expanded. ISIS is an ideology. I did a Christmas message recently. 10 years ago, I had sent a message from Al-Anbar when I was there with my team fighting against what we called Al-Qaeda at that time. But going back even all the way to 2006, 2007, we were picking up guys off the battlefield who were saying that they're part of the Islamic State, and we would turn those individuals over to the Iraqi government for prosecution. So all that time and effort spent fighting down range, time away from the family, the sacrifices you make, friends you lose, you come back here and all that territory is lost again. And as I said in my message this past Christmas, I said, 10 years ago, it was Al-Qaeda. Today is ISIS. Tomorrow is going to have a different name. Until we can fight the concept of this ideology and by having a permanent, capable allied forces on the ground that are fighting for us against that ideology, we'll never be able to defeat them overall.
As far as the progress we've made over the past year, one of the things I'm hearing is that the president now is allowing military commanders to make decisions on the battlefield. We've got a change to our rules of engagement, which had been, I think, ill-conceived and certainly hadn't been helping us on the ground. What do you know about that?
No, that's been positive. As a commander, I always want you to tell me what I need to do and don't tell me how to do it and let me do it. That's what I'm a professional for, and that's why I've gone through the training I have. The one thing I think makes things better for us, because terrorism is not just fighting them on the battlefield, it's fighting them on multiple levels to include their economic hubs and going after their money and dollars, drawing that piece out. And ensuring that foreign governments or our adversaries to us are not just the only ones that we put on the list when it comes to our national security strategy, but we also put the systems that support those particular governments within the national security strategy. And when it comes to that, I think Congress can be very helpful And as far as Congress is concerned, we have to look at both the threats from domestic and foreign terrorists are better addressed when our efforts are multifaceted on these issues, but yet unified in order to resolve the specific problem that the globe is dealing with currently, which is terrorism across the board, everywhere. And if Congress is perfectly situated to define these and facilitate these type of support requirements, and I think once we get there, we'll be much better off as far as dealing with terrorism.
Sargis, why do you think, and we had this discussion earlier, I want to get your thoughts on this, we of course are now at least identifying who the enemy is, but during the last administration, President Obama always made it a point not to refer to them as ISIS, but ISIL. Was that significant, you think?
Well, when he just concentrated on the Levant and Iraq, he was way behind, because when ISIS calls itself ISIS, call them what they call themselves. Because when we finally got to a point where we're calling them ISIL, which means that they're in the Levant, in Syria, basically, and then Iraq, they were already spread. They were already in Yemen. They were actually in Egypt. They were in the Sinai. They were trying to get into Israel. They were operating out of Thailand. I'm going to be heading down to Thailand again end of this month to deal with the terrorism issue like we did when I was there to support the Ramus Challenge, where we were training the many different capabilities that were coming into Thailand. There were special weapon action teams and also their EOD. So ISIL is operating there. I'm going to be going back down there to get more briefings on the type of operations that they're doing, and maybe we could help them with how to define some of the issues that are coming out of the Middle East. But this thing is everywhere. It's within the borders of China. It is within the United States. It's conducted operations here, as we know, killed American citizens. So, it's a ideology, and you cannot break that ideology by thinking if we just isolate ourselves, that we'll be able to be victorious, and just defeating them on the battlefield is not enough.
Now, the president has tried to institute a travel ban, and there have been tremendous legal battles and been called a racist and anti-Muslim, and they say it's discriminatory. What's your thought on that, Sargis?
Well, I don't know why he did that. I'm going to be honest. In February, when the initial one came out, February 16, and the courts went ahead and put a freeze on it, we wrote an article on the Near East Center for Strategic Engagement, and we listed a number of facts at that time that were associated with the whole travel ban issue, and the fact that the same ISIS we just talked about had infiltrated refugee camps in Germany and other locations. They had members arrested within those refugee camps. People who were held by ISIS and escaped had spotted their former captors within those refugee camps. And ISIS had made it a clear requirement that they wanted to attack America and had said it repeatedly. They had the ability to make fake passports. So all these issues altogether were tied to why this travel ban had to be initially initiated. Now, it's a matter of dividing this issue of immigration into three parts. One is looking at the outside issues of who's coming in. The other piece is looking at basically our borders and how we can maybe secure and protect them better. And then the other issue is the issue that we deal with internally, which is looking at illegal immigrants within the borders of the United States. I think if you divide into those three segments, I think you can better address the issues that might be allowing individuals like them to make it to the United States and conduct the type of operations they do.
Sargis Sangari is with us, and we'll link to his organization where you can get more information about the work that they're doing, and that is the Near East Center for Strategic Engagement. Sargis, what's your view on the whole DACA debate and all of the debate about trying to construct a wall on the southern border? Seems like it's very hard to get traction in Congress because some members of Congress are worried about being seen as racist, and they don't want to offend immigrant groups, and they're very reluctant to embrace this. And the president seems to want to, maybe deal with the Democrats on it. Some of his conservative backers are opposing any sort of a deal. How would you approach it?
Well, just to be transparent about it, I'm actually running now in the 9th Congressional District for U.S. Congress here. And
congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Part of what I had looked at was on the DACA issue, and I just said on immigration, you need to split it into 3 different pieces, this pie. And I think DACA is an internal issue. It needs to be looked at separately, just like the wall is an issue that needs to be looked at separately. As far as DACA is concerned, look, these individuals are in the country. I understand that. But what I hear a lot is the use of the word amnesty. And what my recommendation has been, well, I'll propose, and as far as I know, I'm the only one who's proposed, is to look at it from an immunity standpoint. So you could get rid of all these legal issues that you're dealing with and the political issues that you're dealing with between the Republicans and the Democrats. Mm-hmm. And what amnesty does, when you talk about it from an amnesty perspective, it doesn't address the problem in America faces and continues this policy of chain migration. But if you look at the issue of DACA from an immunity standpoint and address it that way, immunity is different from amnesty, where it actually acknowledges responsibility for committing a crime. And in this case, a crime would have been that you entered the United States illegally. I myself had come to the U.S. as a legal immigrant. And what it does, if you look at it from that perspective, and you understand that, we're a nation of laws, and as the current POTUS has said that, he's going to champion this. If you put it in the immunity category, then what we have done, we have specifically taken that and put it back into the legal systems of the United States again. And you empowered those systems. In this case, you have the existing laws that are in place that you could use. And immunity also factors in the requirements that are going to be granted by the courts. From there, you could simply take everything, put it through the systems that do the vetting in this case. So you empower the current systems that you have. You put the power back into these immigration units that you have on the ground that could tell you what the vetting process should be. And you put these people in a position where you could now start the process of having our system deal with them and getting them out of the political arena. The problem we have, politicians just use these processes on both sides for talking points where they're good as far as their political agendas are concerned, but they don't address it from a statesman standpoint, which is what is good for America, and that we need to approach it in that case.
Don't you think America needs secure borders? I mean, doesn't every country need to have a secure border?
Look, we have multiple security capabilities in the United States. We have the best military, we have the best police, we have the DIA, CIA, FBI, JTF. We have all the mechanisms possible. Every street corner I walk on, there's a camera there. Every restaurant I walk in, there's a camera. Every place is a secure facility. But yet Americans still spend millions of dollars on personal security, to include personal security for their homes, for their families, whatever that might be, from alarm systems,
right?
If their state allows them to concealed carry. So for me, when somebody says we got to keep a border open, it makes no sense, because you yourself are part of that community that although you have all this protection internally, you still spend that money. The reality is that terrorists will use open borders. This is not the nation or the world that we lived in, in the 30,
30 years ago, 50 years ago, issue. Right?
Correct.
Hey, Sargis, do you have another minute or so?
I have a minute. I'm going to be getting a call from the radio station.
We'll squeeze in a very quick call here. Liberal Dan, you're up, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Hey, thank you. Just a quick question. If I have a kid and I bring a kid to a store and I put some produce or whatever in my kid's possession and then the kid winds up walking with it, I would argue that I am still the criminal and not the child. So if I'm somebody who's from another country and I bring my child across the border in violation of the law, why should we be treating that child as a criminal? There should be no need for immunity for that child, because that child never committed a crime, because the child never had intent to do anything. It was the parent, not the child. and I would like your response on that.
All right. Thank you, Liberal Dan. And Sargis, the floor is yours.
Well, that's the reason the immunity is important, because right now the only option you have is amnesty or deportation. And that's what the legal systems are created. But if you put it in the immunity category, you're not penalizing him. You're understanding that something was conducted. There's a record of it being conducted. And then now you could work on a process and a pathway to finally resolve this issue. So you're meeting the requirements of what you just said. It's just you got to call it immunity, work within the system that you have currently, rather than calling it amnesty and pretty much saying that all the crimes committed are good.
Hey, Sargis, thank you, my friend, and good luck to you. We'll, of course, visit with you again before the election, but, hey, I think it's great. We have some new people, people with ideas and passion running for Congress, so good luck to you. Sargis Sangari with us right here in the Ringside program.